Hello everyone, welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. Today we're going to talk about what I read in the second half of October. It's kind of more like of the last week of October I finished these books in, but anyways, so I finished a few more books. Most of them were buddy reads, and a few of them I just had to read for that purpose, but I did read a couple other ones, so let's get into them. The first one is Mexican Gothic. I have lost my dust jacket and I will find it eventually. But anyways, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I read this one with Amy from A-Star Reads. I will link her channel down below along with everyone I mentioned. And I really enjoyed this. It was so good. I think because I'm not a horror reader, I did not get bogged down by the maybe slowness of the earlier stuff and the lack of detail earlier on in certain regards to events. I was okay with. I think that this book had a lot of really interesting character development. It follows Noemi as she is in 1950s Mexico, and she gets an urgent message from her cousin that she needs help. And so she goes to rural Mexico and her cousin's new family, like she just married into the new family. And she finds that she starts having weird visions, weird things starts happening at the house. And her cousin is very much sedated a lot of the time. And Noemi has to solve the problem while trying to help her cousin in this strange family home. I found it to be really interesting. It's definitely a Gothic novel. It is kind of, I never knew what was going to happen. Like every chapter I was like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next chapter, which I loved. And that's one thing I hate in a book is when I can predict the next chapter or the ending, and I never could predict this book. I also really loved how the characters were so engaging, and I've never felt bored. I think that this book was really what I was hoping for, even though I didn't know what I was wanting. This book does contain body horror. It is a horror novel, and I really thought it was a really incredible book. I mean, there obviously are some warnings because it's a horror novel, but it's not a kind of horror novel in some typical sense. It definitely was scarier than some kind of just like slasher ones because it had a psychological element to it for sure. And I think it was really incredibly done. So I do need to find my dust jacket though, because I love the cover of it. But yeah, really incredible. And I'd love to reread it maybe next October and try and see what was coming all throughout the plot. Because there were definitely clues that were scattered that you just don't know until the end. I also finished Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. This was my only Agatha Christie for the month, and I am finally happy to say I read it. I tried reading it last year and I didn't get far into it. I don't know why, but I gave this one 4 stars. I should say I gave Mexican Gothic 5 stars because I could not find a complaint about it. And this one I gave 4 stars. I didn't guess any of the murderers, which is normal for me with a Christie. Even though I love her books, I cannot typically guess who did it. But this one I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought that this one was quite a good one. Yeah, this one follows Hercule Poirot as he's trying to solve a mystery with the help of Adriana Oliver, as there was a murder of a young 13-year-old girl at a Halloween party. And it is quite an interesting tale. It talks a lot about the past and how it impacts the future, or the current day at least, and it was very interesting. I thought this was a good mystery for the most part. I really did enjoy that aspect, and I have a lot of thoughts on this one. I will save that though for my next Agatha Christie video, which I do need to film still, but I did really enjoy this one. And I don't think that with Agatha Christie you should know too much going in. This one does follow Hercule Poirot though, and like I said, it's about a Halloween party, but it's not too Halloween-y, so you could read this at any time of the year, and I think it's totally great. I also read Roses for Mama by Janette Oak. This one actually was one of my favorites growing up. I read this one, I think, when I was a young teen, and I really loved it. And then this time reading it, I was like, there are some maybe minor changes I would have made. So I can't remember what I lowered my rating to, but I definitely lowered my rating. It's now a 4-star instead of a 5-star. I think it's just also nostalgia reasons, but it definitely has some merit to me. I think I love the family element. And I also love how Angela is a mother figure to her siblings, but she's also trying to be a sister to them. It is a little interesting because she is 18, so there is a dynamic there of an age problem, in my opinion. But I did enjoy this one a lot. This one I basically threw in there only to fill out my TBR Clue game. Otherwise, I would not have picked this one up this month, but I was okay with that because I needed a romance, and I just was like, I'll reread a Janette Oak and I'll be good. But this one, yeah, follows Angela as she lives in the West. This is part of Women of the West series by Janette Oak, where each book is about a different woman of the West, and none of them connect, but this one does follow Angela as she is raising her siblings and struggling to find, you know, what life could be like after the fact, essentially. So yeah, I give it 4 stars. It's probably more like a 3-star quality, but I give it 4 stars for nostalgia reasons as well. So the rest are all books I do not own physically. The first of which was Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell. I read this one with Emily from Novelle Novels. She actually finished this one earlier than I did, and I meant to be on top of my buddy read, but I was not. This one left me feeling really apathetic honestly, for the first full half of this book. I felt this book was so slow. This one follows Ruth, who is basically led into sin. That's how everyone looks at her. Or she did the tempting of this honorable young man. And it's a look at how this woman who, when she was 15, sleeps with a man, is his mistress for a little while, gets pregnant, and when he is taken away by his mother, she has to deal with the consequences of being a single mother and then having all of the shame of that later on in life. I might have spoiled something for you, but that's kind of the gist of the book. This book is a lot about how the world looked at single mothers and how if you were not married and how if you had a relationship with someone in that context, how you would be treated as a Scarlet Woman, essentially. I did appreciate that, and I did love the ending, but the amount of work it took for me to get to the ending, I felt like did not quantify the effort of a 5-star or even a 4-star. So I gave this book a 3-star. I unfortunately had to give it that because it did not even get the 4-star quality. The first half made me not care about any of the characters. It was just so slow and so mediocre. I just felt like it was just nonstop. I don't even know how to describe it. It just felt meh. Like I wish I could describe to you how I felt. I wouldn't have finished this book if not for a few reasons. The first of which is that I am going to film a Timeless Tome episode about this book. The second reason is that I want to read all of Gaskell's work eventually, and this has to be one of them. And the third reason is that I was doing a buddy read. So I had to finish this for that, in my own mind. And I know Emily would have been fine if I hadn't, but I really wanted to finish this for that purpose. And also, if I didn't have an audiobook, there was no way I could have finished it. So I needed a lot of help. So I basically binged it all on the 31st, and I managed to finish it in time, but it's unfortunate that it only gets a 3-star. I think that the character of Ruth was interesting at the end or the second half of the book, but honestly, before that half, I just didn't care that much. And I probably would have DNF'd it had it not been for those reasons I previously stated. So I will share a lot of my thoughts and like the spoilery stuff for my Timeless Tome episode, which will be coming out soon. I also read March Book 3, which is by John Lewis. I finished off that trilogy. This is a graphic novel, nonfiction memoir series about John Lewis and how his fight for the civil rights and how all of his actions through that movement happened. The series was so powerful. I gave book 2 in the series 4 stars because I felt like, if I'm remembering right, it just wasn't complete enough. I don't remember exactly what was missing for me, but everything else, this book just wrapped everything up so perfectly, and I loved all the choices that they made with like the coloring and like all of those things, like how they didn't have color. But man, so many hard things to see and to read about, but I am so thankful to have read it, to have learned about those experiences, and I feel like it's such an invaluable thing to read, difficult to read, but valuable thing to read. And I highly recommend reading any of those the March trilogy, and because they're all in graphic novel form, they're so much faster to read. That was in proper English. It was so fast to read, but yeah, really impactful and really profound.
Hi, editing here, Naomi. I realized I forgot a book on my wrap-up and I wanted to add that in. So I actually read Stay With Me by Becky Wade. This one is a Christian fiction and I would call it a romance, but it had so much more than that. It is about Genevieve, who is struggling with oxy addiction, and she is a writer of Bible studies. And basically in this one, it's really hard to explain, so I'm trying to be concise. She basically trespasses at the very beginning of the book and ends up staying on this man named Sam. He's a chef at a local restaurant, and she stays on his property, and he finds out about her oxy addiction, and he decides to help her out with this while she's trying to recover, trying to go to therapy and all these things. And the book kind of progresses from there. This also has a strong element of recovery from an earthquake and post-traumatic stress disorder and mental health. It talks a lot about that and addiction, as when Genevieve was a teenager, she survived an earthquake, and it flashes back to her and the 4 other teens that she was with in that situation. So it is a lot about that, and so obviously trigger warnings for an earthquake and that kind of violence. My hair is a little loopy, sorry, but I found it to be really good. I gave it 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. So now to the last book.
The last thing to talk to you about was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I gave 5 stars to that one as well. So overall, a good quality of things except for Ruth. But yes, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was so good. I buddy read it with Danny from Spinelli Speaks. My goodness, I loved this one. It was so fun. I loved this whole book. Pip was a fantastic character to read about, and this whole mystery, I just could not put it down. We planned on reading it over 7 days and we finished it in 3 days. It was just, I loved it. The whole mystery element, I loved how it kept me guessing. I loved how the characters were so engaging. I loved how, even though it was YA, I don't love angst, and I loved there was so much angst. I loved how the pressure was building and every chapter ended on such a high note. I loved the mixed media with her case files. So good. So many elements were so wonderful. I think it was just brilliantly done and crafted. So if you don't know, this book is about Pip, who is trying to investigate a closed case in her town because she believes that the killer, who is Saul, is not guilty. She thinks that he has been innocent, but the police did not do a good enough job or anything like that. She just wants to investigate deeper. So she's going to do all the research and try to prove that he is innocent, or try to prove who done it, essentially. Try to find more evidence. I loved how from the very beginning, you could tell that she was doing all of the ground work. She was doing all of the hard work. She was not taking any chances. She was not cutting any corners. I loved this book so much. I loved all of the elements. It was just spectacular. And I would recommend this for anyone who loves mysteries. You should read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's brilliant. If you have not had good experience with YA mysteries, you should try this one, because I think that this is a one above the rest. Like, it stands out as being an amazing one. I can't wait to read book 2 and see if it stands up to the first one. And yeah, it sounds like I am just excited. And it's because I was having such a hard time with reading up until that point, and when I read that one, I just could not put it down. And I was so thankful to have a book I could not wait to read and pick up again and again and again and again. So yeah, very exciting, and I cannot wait to read the next one. So overall, pretty good month. So in the month of October, I read 13 books, and I don't think any of them were really duds except for Ruth, but the Ruth ending was really good in Ruth. It just was, I couldn't justify getting it a higher score. So please let me know down below in the comments what you read for October. What was your favorite book? I think my favorite book of the month was Mexican Gothic, actually. That one was really spectacular, and I did not expect to love it as much as I did. And it literally kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. But maybe that's tied for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I don't know. They're tied for first place. But I am so excited that I found 2 really amazing books to read in the month of October. Please let me know down below in the comments what was your favorite book to read. Anyways, I hope that you had a great reading month, and I can't wait to talk to you in my next video. Bye for now.